Virtue is the path to happiness, according to St. Thomas Aquinas. What does that mean? Here's an analogy. If you had the goal in life of being a successful concert pianist, there's a certain definite program of training and practice that you'd have to follow. You'd not only have to learn basic things like how to read music and the right way to hold your fingers over the keys, but you'd have to practice for long hours over many years to acquire the skills, the techniques, the good habits, the musical taste, and the personal character, in fact, what we might loosely call the virtues, of being a virtuoso pianist. Not many of us will be concert pianists, but we find the same kind of pattern anytime someone sets out to achieve some definite goal or end in life, whether it's being a student, a basketball player, a lawyer, a doctor, a scientist, or a good parent. In order to do any of these things well, in fact, to do well in any kind of higher level or sophisticated human activity, you will need to acquire certain skills. And more than this, you'll need habits, traits of character, and stable dispositions of your capacities and powers that make you apt, able, and ready to do it well, with pleasure, and a certain creative freedom. These habits, dispositions, and character traits are what we can loosely call virtues. Now, we'll have more to say about precisely what a virtue is according to St. Thomas Aquinas, how it works, and how to distinguish it from art in our next episode. For now, the point is that acquiring virtues is what puts us in position to succeed and flourish at an activity. It's fairly easy to come up with a recipe for success in a particular zone of human activity, like playing a musical instrument or becoming a good free throw shooter, but those things don't define the whole of a human life. Does this same pattern hold when we're talking about the success of a human life as a whole? Are there human virtues that can dispose us to reach some kind of all-encompassing happiness, to live a happy human life in general? St. Thomas Aquinas thinks so. He thinks that such deep and lasting happiness is really possible for us, and that if we're to get there, it's extremely important for us to think about what true happiness is, and then to acquire the virtues that will enable us to live in such a way so as to obtain it. In fact, for Aquinas, this is the core of the branch of human knowledge and action that we call morality. Most people today think that morality is about rules that you have to obey, perhaps rules that God or the church imposes on us, which makes us do some things that we'd rather not do, and forbids us from doing some things that maybe sometimes we might even sort of want to do. But for Aquinas, morality is about figuring out what will make us truly happy in a deep and lasting way by attaining what is truly good for us, and then arranging our lives so that we can move towards that goal. Morality is therefore not about rules and commandments, but about seeking for and obtaining what is good for us, what leads us to our flourishing and success in the deepest sense of those words. Virtues are an extremely important part of this picture. They're an important part of our moral development because they're what make it possible to move towards our true good and to act well in its pursuit with ease and freedom. St. Thomas thinks that there are a number of different virtues that we need: intellectual virtues, moral virtues, and especially theological virtues, each of which perfects different dimensions, capacities, and powers of the human person in different ways. To understand the importance of these virtues, it'll help to understand a bit better what Aquinas means by happiness. St. Thomas follows Aristotle in thinking that happiness is not so much a feeling or an emotion, nor is it something that just happens to us. Rather, he argues that it's a state, or even better, the activity of living a human life well, by which we attain to what is truly good for us. We naturally desire those things that we perceive as good, and it's a characteristically human activity to make a plan for obtaining the things that we perceive as good for us. We do this all the time. We act with a purpose, with reasons, because we are thinking, deliberating, choosing, purpose-driven creatures. In fact, human beings tend to be unhappy when they feel purposeless, or when they're not able to orient their lives towards some larger goal. We have purposes not only for individual acts, but for whole projects with short-term goals and long-term objectives. It's possible, of course, to flit from good to good, from pleasure to pleasure, but this is hardly the kind of life that satisfies us in any deep way. Rather, we're most human when we make decisions for our future in view of some higher or overarching aim or goal in life. In fact, Aquinas thinks that the moral life is about understanding what is truly good for us and then aiming at the right ends, doing the right sorts of things so as to move towards our true good. There's a negative side to this too. If we're misled or confused about what's good for us, or if we do the wrong sorts of things, even with the best of intentions, we'll tend to move away from what is really good for us. That is the path to frustration and failure, and it can make us miserable. What about our own experience of interior conflict, of having desires for what we know we shouldn't do, or of our conflicted loves? Aquinas would say that we've inherited disordered passions and desires as a result of the fall of our first parents. As a result, we live with a kind of moral blindness to the truth about God and about ourselves and about what is truly good. And our lower passions and desires are unruly and even rebellious against what is higher within us, our minds. The drama of the moral life, then, resides first in the need to clear away the fog and obscurity that blinds our mind, and then to acquire the good habits and virtues that will bring our disordered passions and our desires under control, so that we can govern our lives according to what our mind judges is best, so that our minds can direct us towards what is truly good. What should the aim or goal of the whole of life be? If there's an answer to this question, then knowing it would be one of the most important ingredients for a flourishing human life. The archer needs to know the target if he's to hit his mark, and we should likewise think about the aim of our life if we want it to turn out well. In the Summa Theologiae, St. Thomas goes through a list of what goals people might pursue in the search for happiness: money, honor, power, fame, pleasure. And after looking at all of these things, he concludes that none of them can satisfy us in a lasting and enduring way. None of them is worthy of being our ultimate goal, or what he calls our final end. A final end isn't the only end or goal you pursue. Rather, it's the most powerful end, something that's like a final cause in the Aristotelian sense. A final end is the ultimate goal we're seeking, the one that makes sense of all the other subordinate goals we might have. There's only one thing that can fully satisfy us, Aquinas thinks, the thing that will quell all our desires, and that is God himself, who is the infinite and perfect good. Attaining to God, this is our final end, the most important goal for a human life, the goal in view of which we should arrange every other thing we do in life. That means that the activity of happiness can be real but imperfect in this life as we grow in the life of virtue, moving toward God through the ups and downs of this world, and that by God's grace, we hope to experience it in full in the life of heaven, where we will know and love God perfectly, beholding, possessing, experiencing, even enjoying the infinite perfection of Him who is the source of every good thing, and who bestows on us his life, his friendship, and his love in superabundance. This is a good that vastly surpasses what our nature is capable of, but with the help of God's grace, we can acquire moral and intellectual virtues, and we can even receive, by a divine gift, the theological virtues by which we are raised to supernatural life. Endowed with these virtues, the greatest possible happiness really is possible to us. That's why virtue is the path to happiness. For readings, podcasts, and more videos like this, go to Aquinas101.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for one of our free video courses on Aquinas, and don't forget to like and share with your friends because it matters what you think.